We're going to give it just a little bit more time to let people log in, and then we'll start momentarily. All right. So we are going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining Centralina Area Agency on Aging's webinar series. Today's webinar is titled Key Components to Healthy Aging, Physical Activity, Emotional Well-Being, and Nutrition. And next slide, please. All right, so just as a reminder, we are in webinar mode. All attendees are automatically muted and you will be unable to see other participants. Only the speakers and hosts are viewable. If you have any questions, just please drop those in the chat box and we will get them towards the end of the presentation. And the session will be recorded and available on our website. Any resources will also be sent after the presentation. All right, next slide. Okay, so today's speaker is Keisha Lewis, founder of Weldom, and is a dedicated healthcare professional with over 23 years of experience as an occupational therapist and 15 years as a certified diabetes care and education specialist. Her passion lies in helping individuals maintain independence and well-being, especially older adults and those managing diabetes. Through her expertise, Keisha integrates occupational therapy's holistic approach, focusing on functional ability, daily living, and home safety, with tailored diabetes education, empowering clients to take control of their health and live fuller, healthier lives. Keisha's vision for Weldom stems from her deep commitment to meeting clients where they are, delivering personalized care that improves their quality of life and fosters long-term wellness and community connections. In September 2024, so this past year, Lewis published her first book, Type 2 Diabetes for Beginners, Understanding the Basics. This reader-friendly guide empowers individuals with the knowledge to to manage diabetes effectively and live healthier lives. Lewis earned her Bachelor of Science in Occupational Therapy from Winston-Salem State University and holds a Master's in Health Promotion and Wellness Management from Marymount University. Her work inspires and impacts those she serves, reinforcing her commitment to enhancing health outcomes in underserved communities. And with that, I am going to go ahead and pass the presentation over to Keisha.
All right. Thank you so much, Amanda. I'm going to jump right into the key components of healthy aging and we'll get started. So today I'm hoping to discuss the components of healthy aging. We're going to define and discuss the benefits of aging safely in place. We're also going to learn how physical activity, emotional well-being, and nutrition impact healthy aging. And we're going to identify some resources. And at the end, we're going to discuss referrals and follow up with appropriate services. So Amanda has told you a little bit about me, so I am not going to go into talking about me, but the one thing I want you to remember from this presentation about the organization Weldom is I always say the name says it all. It's wellness in your domain, so your wellness to be able to age and live well independently in your home and your community. And also the word Weldom and the wellness and freedom, because it's wellness and freedom to be able to have choices to manage diabetes. So we're going to go ahead and start. I can't see you all, but I know you're there. So if you just put a word in the chat for me, when you think about what does healthy aging look like for you, or what does healthy aging mean for you, if you would go ahead and just drop some words in the chat so I can see what you all are saying and know that you all are there. But what does that look like for you? So I'm gonna let you type in and so I can see. All right. So mobility, happiness, health, staying active, staying in my home. Those are all things. Peace, I love it. Being active. And those are some of the things that we're going to talk about today. Self-sufficient, joy, I love it. And so the person in the background in the picture, I feel like she's displaying joy and happiness and independence. And so we're going to discuss some of those things. So you said this, some people said this in there. And so it's very important for me to talk about aging in place. And I can't start this conversation today without talking about it. And I bring it up because we see that about 75% of adults believe that it's important to be able to age in place. And there's some studies out there that say it's up to 88% of individuals believe it's important to age in place and age in their home. In 2024, the Vice President of Family, Home, and Community for AARP said, as people age, affordability and independent living isn't a preference, it's essential for our well-being. And to me, that's really important because the statistics, highlight now that more people are living longer and living independently and living alone in their home. I think at least 28% of people over the age of 65 live alone in their home. And so that statistic raises the need that we need to have independence. And independence is a part of aging in place and aging in place safely with the right supports. So we're not going to do a whole lot on the aging in place, but it's important for me to talk about the benefits of aging in place. And when compared to living in an institutional setting, older adults who live at home, we see they have significantly improved independence, quality of life, social connectiveness to their family and their friends, reduced healthcare complaints, and also cost savings. So it's also important to know that as your abilities change over the years, as we grow older, it's important that your home has to change too. And you need the support of your family and your friends to be able to continue to live independently in your home. I use my grandmother as an example. My grandmother was able to live in her home with support and with the support of caregivers, her family, up until she was 99 years old. And at that time, she did pass. But for her, with all of these supports, she was able to age in the home that she wanted to be in. And so this is an interesting read. Can't go over all of it right now, but in January and February of 2022, the University of Michigan did this national poll, and they polled older adults between the ages of 50 and 80 about their perspectives on aging in place and their available supports. So as we saw in the previous slide, about 75% of people stated they want to be able to age in place. This study or this poll found out that 88% of people believe that it was important to age in place. But I will say that preparation and planning and assessments of individual needs are really important to be able to age in place safely. And so today we're going to talk about some of those key physical, emotional components and nutritional components of being able to facilitate this process of aging in place. And I will point out that what's interesting though from this poll is that even though 88% of the people believed it's important to age in place, only 1 in 7 had given it a lot of thought, and only 38% had given it some consideration. So we have the desire, but we have to put that desire, that thought into action for sure. And so here what we have, I want you to know that healthy aging means ensuring that we can maintain good physical health and mental health and social health. Healthy aging, I always tell people, it's not just for older adults. It starts at every age. So whether you're 2, 22, or 62, healthy aging is important. So we earlier we stated, and I want you to appreciate the concept the earlier we start. So that's why I said 2 to 22 to 62, because if we can appreciate that everyone's aging and we all need to develop these healthy habits, that's really key in helping us, maintain our independence, prevent chronic conditions, prevent our risk for falling. as well as just impacting our overall quality of life. So the Center for Disease Control, they highlight these 7 habits to adopt in order to promote healthy aging. And today we can't focus on all of them, but we're going to focus on physical activity. We're going to focus on the emotional well-being, social well-being, and nutrition. So let's go ahead and start with the components of healthy aging. So we're going to look at, again, emotional, social well-being, physical activity, and physical ability. And lastly, we're going to end with talking about some nutrition. So when we talk about physical ability, so our physical ability, it largely, I think about strength and balance. So strength and balance are key components to our ability as we age. So decreased strength and decreased balance can impact our fall risk. It can increase fractures, reduce our mobility, and then decrease the ability for us to be able to perform our self-care tasks. Including bathing, dressing, and even limiting our ability to transfer from different surfaces, like on and off the toilet, in and out of the bed. So the physical ability of having decreased strength and decreased balance can affect our overall quality of life. And you see there on the slide is that we lose about 3 to 5% of muscle mass each decade after the age of 30. And the rate of loss typically increases after the age of 75 and it can occur faster as early as 65. And then balance is important because our brain takes this information from our sensory, our motor, our vestibular, and our visual systems, and it puts it together for us to be able to maintain our balance. The other impact of the physical ability when we lose strength and we lose balance is it increases our risk for falling. And according to the CDC, 1 in 4 adults over the age of 65 fall each year. And factors leading and increasing the risk of falls include lower body weakness, vitamin D deficiency, the medications when we're on increased amounts of medications, vision problems, foot pain, improper footwear, and then home hazards all put us at increased risk for falling. And then once someone falls once, it doubles their chance of falling again. So physical ability is really important to this puzzle of healthy aging and being able to even age in place. The other thing I like to highlight is chronic conditions in older adults. So most chronic conditions are caused by a short list of things, including tobacco use, improper nutrition, physical inactivity, or excessive alcohol use. So by avoiding these things and getting good preventative care, you can improve your chance of staying well, feeling good, and living longer. And chronic disease, I bring this up because it can limit a person's ability to be able to perform those activities of daily living, causing them to have decreased independence and increasing the need for institutional care or in-home caregivers or other long-term supports and caregivers. And the thing about these chronic conditions, and this has increased over the years, but 95% of adults over the age of 65 have at least one chronic condition, and 80% have 2 or more chronic conditions. And what was interesting as I was doing this presentation was I was just actually looking up as far as preventative care. How much do we spend on preventative care to improve overall health? And the statistic actually, it's less than 3% of healthcare costs are spent on preventative care. So again, this presentation was important for me because I want to talk about things that we can do to prevent some of these common chronic conditions that we see in older adults. And so when we talk about physical activity recommendations, physical activity in itself would be a whole nother presentation. But some physical activity I want you to know is better than none. So I have to talk about physical activity, okay? Adults who sit less and do more moderate amounts of vigorous physical activity gain health benefits. So you can see the first thing on this slide is I want you to move more and sit less. And I know people always ask me, well, what's the difference between physical activity and what's the difference between exercise, Keisha? So I tell them physical activity is any movement that's going to increase energy in your body, and exercise is a more specific, structured type of physical activity. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have you look at this little table here and see some of the physical activity recommendations. But we want you to move more and sit less. Get at least 150 to 300 minutes of moderate intensity activity. Muscle strengthening is important, and so that involves all major muscle groups, and we want to do that 2 or more days out of the week. And then we want to participate in multi-component exercises, balance, aerobic, and strength training. And it's important for you to determine your level of effort for physical activity relative to your level of fitness. And if you can't complete the whole 150 minutes, do what you can do. Particularly if you're someone that has a chronic condition and you're limited. I often tell my clients that I see for diabetes is I would rather you participate in small bouts of exercise, maybe doing 10 minutes 3 times a day so you can get 30 minutes over the course of 5 days out of the week. And I will say when it comes to physical activity recommendations, these are general guidelines from the physical activity recommendations and guidelines, but it's very important if you are not physically active. I want you to talk to your family healthcare provider about starting some type of physical activity and making sure that it's healthy for you so you're safe when you're doing that activity. That's very important. Then I'm just giving you an example here of what exercise can look like. So the two main types of exercise are your aerobic exercises and your resistive exercises. So aerobic exercises are those exercises that are going to increase your heart rate and your breathing. And then resistive training, also known as strength training, is that exercise is going to help you build muscle and improve strength and balance. And strength training also helps us to be able to perform those activities of daily living, being able to do things like climbing stairs, lifting laundry baskets, or even doing yard work. Then we have other activities, including yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi. These are activities that improve balance and strength and help with relaxation. Then we have flexibility activities or exercises, and they stretch your muscles and improve your joint range of motion. And then we have balance activities. And balance activities improve your ability to be able to resist forces within and outside of the body and help reduce your risk of falling. So again, these slides will be available to you, but I've also listed under each category some guidelines on completing the activities where you can see aerobic exercise. The goal is reaching 30 minutes 5 days a week, and I provided some examples like walking, swimming, dancing, tennis, or cycling. And then you have your resistance exercises, completing them 2 to 3 days a week. And you have hand weights, resistive bands, weight machines, or even your own body weight. So again, take a look at these slides after the presentation. When it comes to physical activity, not getting enough physical activity does come with high health and financial costs, okay? So not getting enough physical activity can lead to those chronic conditions like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and some cancers. So you can see, I like this infographic from the CDC where it shows that physical activity supports independence with daily living activities. It can improve mental health. It decreases pain and improves function. It can improve cardiovascular health, muscle fitness, and brain health. So physical activity has so many different benefits from an immediate standpoint to a more long-term standpoint. So it's very important that we move more and sit less. So then this slide, it just shows the impact of physical activity on those chronic conditions. So those common chronic conditions that I showed in the previous slide, by increasing your activity levels, you lower the risk of developing those common chronic conditions. And so you can see there, exercise, what it will do for arthritis. It'll help decrease pain, improve function, and improve quality of life. If we look at Exercise with diabetes, it can lower our cardiovascular disease, our mortality, lower the hemoglobin A1C, and improve insulin resistance. So these are just some examples of how physical activity can impact those chronic conditions. And so as we close in talking about physical ability, some of the things you can do if you notice, hey, my physical ability is impaired, and that concerns me about making a safe plan to age in place at home. Some of the things that you can do or recommend to your clients, or some of the things you can do for yourself, include seeking out services from an occupational therapist. Occupational therapists can look at home safety and look at the decline in your basic self-care and function to help improve it. You could also ask for a referral for physical therapy services, as a physical therapist can look at decline in function and balance and improve that. And then later we'll talk more about it, but there's evidence-based programs out there like the SAIL program or the Matter of Balance program that can impact and reduce your risk of falls and improve balance. And then we'll talk about well-balanced diet. And it's also important that you get your annual medical appointments at your physician's office, your physical, your vision check, dental check, and even podiatry appointments to check your feet. So now we're going to move into the emotional and social well-being aspect of healthy aging. And so when we hear a lot on the news, I think, and on TV now about social isolation. And so looking at the lack of social connections, and we see here that 1 in 3 adults in the US report feeling lonely. 1 in 4 adults report not having social and emotional support. And we hear all the time on the news now that older adults are more at risk for social isolation. So when we think about what social isolation is, it's when someone doesn't have relationships or contact with others and they have little to no social support. And then when we look at loneliness, loneliness is often defined as feeling alone or disconnected from others. It feels like you don't have any meaningful relationships or close relationships or a sense of belonging. And I always tell people, even a person that has a lot of friends, they can sometimes still feel lonely. So we know that social isolation and loneliness are widespread problems, and they've been even considered public health concerns. And the former U.S. Surgeon General, he had a great quote that I always remembered is that loneliness is like hunger, a signal we're lacking, something for survival. And he also emphasized that loneliness was a public health crisis and it can impact our physical health, our mental health, and it's social connections are crucial for our overall well-being. And so we're going to talk about those social connections a little bit more. So the impact of social isolation is it increases our risk for heart disease and stroke, type 2 diabetes, depression and anxiety, suicide and self-harm, dementia, and even early death. So some of the things when we talk about what is our social emotional needs. So it involves your social supports and your network. So that could be anything from having family, friends, neighbors, your church community. It could be paid services such as physicians, nurses, therapists, or community health workers engaging with you. Because social supports provide emotional, material, and informational support for you. And then your emotional support is think about that as your health and your well being. And it's an expression of understanding, encouragement of feelings, and advice and information. And when you have good emotional support, you often experience improved health through psychological function, social and emotional well being. And it can also help reduce the symptoms of depression. So when we look at your social and emotional needs, these are very important and they're important for all of us. And I always tell people, socially as humans, we need each other and we truly are better together when we figure this out. And some of those benefits of those positive social emotional well-being needs is it lowers your risk of disease, sickness, and injury. It can help you recover faster when you're sick or you're injured. improves your mental health, helps you being able to bounce back from negative experiences. It helps you develop stronger relationships and self-esteem. And it also has you have a sense of contentment. And so you have purpose. And then for those of you still working, it's a better productivity and performance at work can help with those social emotional well-being needs. And so, how do you improve social emotional well-being? If you've identified, I might not be stacking up so good with my social supports or the emotional supports. One thing you can do is you can seek out mental health professional to be able to talk about how you're feeling and what you're experiencing. Reaching out to local community resources and networks, identifying healthy ways to cope and deal with stress, and then taking care of your overall physical health. And some of these resources for social emotional needs, the American Psychological Association has great resources on the topics of aging and older adults. Of course, Central Lina has resources. The CDC has this emotional well-being, improving your emotional well-being. It's a kind of page on there, and that's really helpful. Seeking out information from your healthcare provider is also important and beneficial. And then the Geriatric Mental Health Foundation has great resources. MindWise Innovation. This is something that I discovered. It's more of an app. You can go on there. You can complete anonymous self-assessment that will give you information about yourself. I definitely encourage you to check that out. And then there's the Pearls Toolkit. It's programmed to encourage active, rewarding lives. And it is on the National Council of Aging's website, but it's an evidence-based program to help improve that social emotional well-being. And the last component that we're going to discuss and talk about today is going to be good nutrition. So I put nutrition in there, and again, I'm all about statistics and information. So 32% of adults between the age of 50 to 64 say they eat a well-balanced diet. And then 44% of adults between 65 and 80 report eating a well-balanced diet, and 38% reported they do not eat enough fruits and vegetables. So I was thinking about this and I was like, well, what do people consider a well-balanced diet? So I'm going to have you do that in the chat again for me, but type in the chat so I can read, what do you all consider a well-balanced diet? I'm going to see it come up again. Okay, so eating from all the food groups, eating a variety, um, seeing what else somebody puts. Yeah, a mix of fruits and vegetables. You eat the rainbow. Intuitive eating practices, Mediterranean diet, colorful plate. All of those things, they're great. Yes, all of those things are great. And that's what I consider a well-balanced diet as well. So one that focuses on consuming a variety of foods from all of the food groups that are going to help our body get good nutrients and help us maintain our overall health. So more than a third of people from the ages of 50 to 80 say that the rising cost of groceries has impacted them a lot. With 41% of those people saying that, hey, this is really a problem. And so people who reported they do not eat enough fruits and vegetables were also more likely to report that their diets have become less healthy because of the rising costs compared to those who feel like they didn't eat enough fruits and vegetables. So that is something to consider, because my mom told me last night she went to the grocery store and she spent over $100 and she maybe had 3 bags. And so that is impacting maybe how healthy people eat. So we will look at some of those resources, or not today, I don't have them in my presentation, but that's where we can focus on those community networks. So what resources are available in our community to be able to help us get those healthy fruits and vegetables and eat the rainbow and have a balanced diet. But I thought that that was something important to consider, is that the rising cost of food can impact what we are eating, particularly in the older adults we serve in the community. So then when we look at healthy eating, so I'm going to talk about what does healthy eating look like. So as you all mentioned, we want to eat more whole foods. You said fruits and vegetables. So healthy eating and good nutrition, I always say it doesn't have to be complicated, and we can take small steps to improve our intake. And so earlier when we talked about a well-balanced diet, I want you to think about eating more whole foods. So foods that are as close to their natural state when you purchase them, then eating minimally processed and eating minimally processed foods, not processed foods, okay? These foods tend to be more satisfying and they're richer in vitamins and minerals, and they give us good fiber. And they also tend to have a lower glycemic content, which also helps if you have type 2 diabetes. And this helps us maintain steady energy levels while reducing our risk for insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. So when we look at healthy eating, what are those whole foods? So fruits and vegetables, your meat, poultry, and seafood, nuts, seeds, and beans, your whole grain items like brown rice and quinoa, farro and barley. And what we want to do is we want to eliminate those processed foods. So those processed foods include things like your packaged bread and bakery goods, frozen dinners and meals, packaged snacks like chips, pretzels, crackers, and then those deli and processed meats like bacon and sausage. So when we eat this healthy or well-balanced diet, many of you mentioned in the chat, you said the Mediterranean diet, and that's a pattern that we can follow that's more similar to these whole-based kind of natural foods. But also what I have here is just some different variety of plates. And so a lot of times we hear about myplate.gov, and I recommend you go there. It shows, we eat vegetables, fruits, grains, proteins, and dairy. Another plan your portion guide I have here is from the American Diabetes Association. It's showing you that, using a plate guide method, half of your plate is going to be those non-starchy type vegetables. It's giving you a quarter of your plate is your starch, and then a quarter of your plate is your protein. And then this other example is from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And they say, hey, we need to move the spectrum over from what Americans generally eat. And you see in that plate, we generally have increased sugary, fatty, processed food. And we want to move more towards this whole food, plant-based pattern of eating, because that decreases obesity, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease. So yes, when we think of a well-balanced diet, it's having variety and having food that is close to food as possible. But I also always tell people the choice is yours, no matter which pattern you choose. But I do want you to choose a pattern that's more of a variety and eliminating that processed type food. And one thing, and we'll talk about it later, but if you have questions about how you're eating, what to eat, you have certain medical conditions, I'm going to make a recommendation that you ask your healthcare provider to refer you to a registered dietitian so you can have a one-on-one conversation about your specific needs. The second step to healthy eating. So first step was more whole foods, eating healthier whole foods. The next thing is making a plan. And I have here a meal plan for success. So when you make a plan about what you're going to eat, you write down, maybe not being as detailed as what you're going to have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but it does help. But you create a grocery list. Sometimes you meal prep at home. Because I always tell people, if you don't make a plan to eat well or eat healthy, then what happens is you're hungry, you don't feel up to cooking, you dine out, you get fast food, you get food that's convenient. So making a plan is a key part of healthy eating. And then another aspect of healthy eating is being sure that you drink water. And so I encourage you all to drink water with your meals. It's important to stay hydrated. Certain medications that we might take also affect our hydration levels. And so you want to be mindful of the fluids you drink too if you're on fluid restrictions. The National Academy of Medicine general guidelines for how much we should have is 9 to 13 cups of fluid daily for healthy men and women over the age of 19. And so if you think about, okay, if you have trouble drinking fluids for whatever reason, you could also try some of these water-rich foods that I've included, like watermelon, cucumbers, lettuce, strawberries, celery, or even low sodium broths. And some studies that I kind of found when I was doing this is there was a study from the University of California School of Nursing that found that up to 40% of older adults are chronically underhydrated. So that was like, wow. And I would say generally for the general population, I didn't look up that statistic, but hydration is important. And for me, it's a problem. And so I have an app on my phone. I have a water app. And it rings every so often to tell me, hey, Keisha, it's time to drink water. So you might even notice you can't see it here because I got the screen on, but I've got a cup here of water because I have to sip water every so often. And so again, according to the American Heart Association, the amount of water each person needs can vary. And so what I provided you with the general 9 to 13 cups, those are general guidelines, okay? So 9 cups for women and then more 13 cups for men. But again, working with a registered dietitian can help you with that and help you figure out what is specific to your needs, okay? And then this healthy eating, the fourth thing I want to talk about is focus on getting protein in. So it's important to remember with all these things that I'm showing you, these are general guidelines, and I've referenced where I got this information from. And these are slides that were through the National Resource Center on Nutrition and Aging through the Administration of Community Living. And it's important to get protein in because as we age, adults, we lose up to 50% of our muscle mass between the ages of 40 and 80. And dietary protein helps us be able to maintain and build muscle. So, healthy eating guidelines emphasize that we need to get enough of that nutrient. And your protein intake that you're getting, you want to spread that out over several meals to provide the most benefit. But again, speaking to a registered dietitian about your individual needs is very important. So, some of the protein sources, you might be choosing animal-based protein or plant-based protein. And it sometimes is a myth. Well, if you don't, eat animal products, you can't get enough protein. But that isn't true. There are many sources of plant-based protein too. So I wanted to be able to provide a list, but your animal-based protein, you have things like chicken, eggs, salmon, Greek yogurt. Plant-based proteins are things found in tofu, beans, lentils, your whole grain pasta, and almonds. So these are all sources of protein. In this information guide, it has some other food sources and it even shows you the amount per serving of protein. So again, this is a great resources and I would encourage you to check that out as well. And then the fifth component to this healthy eating is making sure we consume fiber-rich foods. And this is important because around 95% of adults report that they don't get enough fiber in their diet. So, fiber is important because it not only helps us regulate our digestive system, it helps us stay full longer, it helps us prevent constipation, and it can even reduce our risk for heart disease, diabetes, and certain cancers. So, getting in fiber is great. In the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics recommends that the daily intake for fiber for adults is 25 grams of fiber for women and 38 grams of fiber for men. And so I listed here some fiber sources, but this handout again that's available to you. It gives you some other information. But some of those fiber-rich sources are bananas, black beans, broccoli, apples, quinoa, oatmeal, nuts, and seeds. So when we think of fiber, a lot of times we think we get the fiber from fruit, but we also see there's other options for us. Fruit, grains, nuts, and seeds are all great sources of fiber to incorporate in our diet. And then lastly, under the healthy eating category is it's important to monitor your sodium. Okay. So, you know, too much sodium increases fluid and it can lead to elevated blood pressures. And so the average American consumes more than 3,500 milligrams of sodium. Whereas the American Heart Association recommends that we should have no more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day for most adults. However, they are ideally recommending that we limit that sodium to around 1,500 milligrams. So the American Heart Association has this Change Your Salty Ways in 21 Days, and it provides some suggestions on what you can do for a 3-week period of time to reduce the amount of salt that you consume. And so reducing sodium intake, the biggest thing you can do is eliminate processed foods and salt. So cooking at home, using more herbs and spices to cook your meals with. It tells you here, it's hard to see on this chart, but week 1, you eliminate breads and rolls and cold cuts and cured meat. Week 2, you cut out the pizza and the poultry. And week 3, you eliminate the soups and the sandwiches. So 70% of the sodium that we do consume comes from that packaged foods. So just by eliminating that packaged food, you reduce your sodium intake. So again, this is a great handout, and I would encourage you to go to the American Heart Association website and check this handout out. But changing your salty ways in 21 days, it's a great resource. So let's talk about tips for success when it comes to eating well, okay? So start with your medical provider. So if you say, you know what, I have a thing or two to learn about eating better, eating more well-balanced diet, I want you to ask your healthcare provider for a referral to a registered dietitian, okay? Learn, what a healthy plate looks like. And that registered dietitian is going to help you learn what that healthy plate looks like for you. It's important to remember that you need to choose a variety of foods and learn more about how to read a label, how to look for lower fat, lower sugar, lower sodium options. But again, that's meeting one-on-one with a registered dietitian to help facilitate that. And then you want to stick with serving sizes. So once you learn to read that label and you turn that label over, stick with the serving size on that package. And then it's important to stay hydrated. You want to limit beverages with lots of added sugar. The preference is have more water or no sugar added beverages. And then you want to figure out ways that you can stretch your food budget. So how can you get access to maybe local food banks or fresh nutrition that's out in the community to be able to help you? Or how can you buy things in bulk or share buying things? I live close to my best friend, and so sometimes we'll buy things at Costco because I live alone. And so she has a family, and so we buy things and we divide them up. So that's how I stretch my food budget, so I can have things for a little bit longer. And then other things that I want you to consider again is that with healthy eating, with nutrition, there's no one size that fits all approach when it comes to nutrition, because we all have different needs. And so that's why I'm emphasizing, I keep emphasizing that I want you to speak to a registered dietitian about your specific needs. Because as we age, our protein needs might change. We might need to get more vitamins and different nutrients from other areas and other foods that we're eating. So those are just some things to consider. Some nutrition resources. The National Council on Aging has some great resources on healthy eating habits for older adults. Again, schedule an appointment with a registered dietitian. The USDA, myplate.gov. This picture is from that site. It has some great resources on dietary guidelines, um, planning your healthy plate, healthy eating on a budget. These are all some great resources for you all to check out. And so to summarize is healthy aging, those components that we talked about today, is the physical ability and getting in physical activity, the importance of emotional and social well-being, and then good nutrition. And those are all just some small components of healthy aging, because I couldn't talk about all the 7 components that we saw, but I wanted to hit those because I really do feel like with proper physical activity and movement, supporting your emotional and your social well-being, and getting good nutrition really will jumpstart you and make sure that, hey, you can increase your independence, you can maintain your independence and your overall quality of life. And so, as you know, I know our audience is varied today, but for me, when I talk about, well, what does success looks like when it comes to healthy aging and community partnerships and, you know, bringing webinars like Central Lina, bringing webinars like this together. So success looks like, you know, focusing on home and community-based services to be able to promote healthy aging, utilizing evidence-based programs, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and advocating for services for those in our community, whether it be yourself or an older adult that is in your community that you're supporting. And then we also want to promote independence. So very important that we provide community-based services to support older adults and family caregivers to promote independence. Because earlier, when I saw all the comments of the components of healthy aging, you know, independence was in there, joy was in there, movement was in there. I love the comments that you all said, because those are the same things that are important to me. You know, having good cognition, being able to do things on my own. So promoting independence is key to healthy aging. And then promoting physical activity. So promoting concepts of healthy aging in community dwelling older adults to be able to reduce fall risk, to be able to increase function and maintain function, to be able to do all those things that we need to do that I mentioned earlier, from your dressing and bathing, climbing stairs, getting down, playing with your grandkids, getting on and off the couch or in and out of the bed. That's all important. So that's why it's important that we promote physical activity. And then we want to provide a variety of education. So collaboration in forums like this and platforms to help us promote awareness and get more education about, hey, what does this healthy aging look like? Okay, when does this start? Because I always tell people we're aging every day, you know? And for me, aging is living. So I'm going to say, hey, let's keep doing this thing. So then using your resources. So there's resources out there that will support healthy aging. And it's really important that we use those resources. So when we look at, okay, physical activity is a problem, what can we do? Recommend PT and OT services, or request PT and OT services to help you with your balance and independence and your activities of daily living and your instrumental activities of daily living. Refer to senior community centers, local community centers, local intergenerational centers in which you can do activities. Then you want to seek out evidence-based programs. You want to seek out programs in your community and take advantage of these programs. And a lot of these programs that are evidence-based programs in the community for chronic disease prevention, falls, diabetes, they're free programs. So look into those programs. And then partner with Central Lina, which is one of the area agencies on aging, to inquire about what are these community-based programs. You know, they have programs that promote activities and well-being and nutrition. So find out about those programs. And if they're not offering the program, they might be able to refer you to the resource in the community that is offering the program. And then for those of you on the call that have Medicare or you're partnering or caring for someone who has Medicare, Medicare has benefits. They have annual benefits that are covered. Make sure you use them. Some of these benefits include, that annual wellness visit, the bone mass measurement. So the DEXA scan to check your bone density. That's important, especially if you're at risk for, falling. You want to make sure your bone health is good. Cardiovascular disease screenings, make sure you get those done to check heart health. And then medical nutrition therapy is a part of that. So when I keep referencing, ask your doctor for a referral to a registered dietitian. Your benefits cover medical nutrition therapy. And even if you don't have Medicare, you are privately insured, you have most private insurances follow suit with Medicare guidelines. So some of these benefits, they apply for you. So medical nutrition therapy is covered. And then depression screenings, that's covered. Vision screenings, that's covered. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention diabetes education services. As a certified diabetes care and education specialist, there's also diabetes self-management education and support services. They're called DSMES. These are, again, covered by your insurance. If you have Medicare, Medicare will cover them at initial diagnosis up to 10 hours of education. Also, if you have private insurance, typically private insurance will cover diabetes education. You may have a copay or deductible, but if you have a copay or deductible and it's more than what you want to spend, then there are services like Weldom that provides one-on-one diabetes coaching and education using your FSA or HSA benefit, or allowing you to be able to privately pay for that at a reduced rate. Compared to maybe what that deductible might be. So again, take advantage of those benefits that you have, okay? And then I am going to bring Amanda back on to talk about some of the evidence-based programs. So Amanda.
Yes, thank you so much, Keisha, for all of the wonderful material you have gone over today. And like Keisha mentioned, utilizing your resources is extremely important in achieving good health. And we just wanted to do a bit of a plug of what's offered here through Central Carolina Area Agency on Aging. We do assist in the implementation of evidence-based programs that Keisha had mentioned. And for people to participate in. So all of the workshops do encompass and integrates healthy aging components into its curriculum. So the 5 that we do offer is A Matter of Balance, which is a falls prevention workshop. Living Healthy with Chronic Conditions, that focuses on empowering people to live comfortable and fulfilling lives. Living Healthy with Diabetes, that equips individuals living with diabetes with resources to gain control of their health. Living Healthy with Chronic Pain, which teaches individuals how to manage a wide range of pain conditions with confidence. And then lastly, our Building Better Caregivers workshop, which aids caregivers to managing their physical and emotional health while providing care to their care partner. So, in addition to people participating in these workshops, we do provide the opportunity for individuals to be trained and become leaders so that they can also deliver these programs in their community. The trainings are open to anyone interested. You don't really have to have like a health background. Everything is laid out for you, and that's why it's considered a training. And if you are interested, you can contact me for more information. And then, of course, anyone who is outside of our region, I do highly recommend contacting your local area agency on aging to get connected to these wonderful programs. And that is my plug.
Oh, I was muted. Sorry. So everyone, thank you for participating. It was some great comments in the chat that I really appreciate that everyone added in there about resources and benefits. And one of the last things that I put in there too was, it's very important to take advantage of those resources and very important to take advantage of your local area agencies on aging because they have great resources. And I was like taking advantage of resources and partnering with community social workers or case managers in your local community are also really, really important because they provide so many great resources. And then thinking about if you have clients that are like dual eligible and they have Medicaid and Medicare, and I don't know what that's going to look like going forward in the future, but just using those resources and helping those older adults in the community get the services that they do need is really important. But lastly, I just wanted to say if you want to get in touch with me at Weldom, this is information for our social media handles, our email address if you want to reach out to us, phone number, and website. And also, I have a YouTube page in which it talks about some topics on diabetes. So I appreciate all of you for your time and your attention, and this was great. And definitely, I want you to continue to log on to these great websites, these great resources and webinars that Centralina has. And so I think with that being said, unless anyone has questions, um, I think I had my timer on so I wouldn't go over. But we have a few minutes left for any questions that anyone has. So again, thank you all for participating today. And I was looking in the chat to see. Nope, it looks like no questions. So Amanda, I might turn it over to you, but I mean, if you have questions, type them in there, but I'm turning it back over to Amanda now.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for attending today's webinar. We hope you gained valuable knowledge on healthy aging. And as a reminder, the recorded webinar will be posted on our website and any supporting materials will be sent out later. And with that, I hope you all have a great rest of the day.